Have you been learning German for a while and even experienced some success with, say, Duolingo? But do you really speak German? Like, can you produce it on your own? If you're like, feeling kind of caught out right now, you are not alone. Most English speakers who try to learn German fall prey to 5 temptations that keep them from actually, really, truly speaking German. By the end of this video, you'll know what those temptations are and how you can avoid them and save yourself lots of time, energy, and frustration. The first temptation is thinking that all you need is vocabulary, right? So that you think, okay, well, I'll just for, even simple sentences, I'll just learn the word for the and the word for cat and drink and milk and then, string it all together and voila, now I'm speaking German. Or same thing, I just learn the word for that and the word for me, right? I just learn all of these individual words and then I string them together like I would in English and now I'm saying it in German. Okay, but the problem with this is that there are 5 to 6 different ways to say the in German, 5 to 6 different ways to say that and this, even different ways to say adjectives such as pink. So if you don't know those different ways to say these words, then you might as well be saying, cat drinks milk, man sees dog, flower has petals, right? It's not going to be really truly speaking German. So the truth of the matter is vocabulary alone isn't going to take you there. You have to have grammar as well. It's kind of like if you imagine a car, vocabulary is the gas, but grammar is the engine, okay? You have to have both, otherwise that car is not going to run. So when it comes to grammar, German loves what are called endings. We have lots of endings in German. We have endings for nouns. We have endings for verbs. Then we have this special group of endings that we use on the words that come in front of nouns, and they are what give us those 5 to 6 different ways of saying words like the and that and this, or even the different ways of using adjectives in German. That ties directly into the next temptation, which is to think that word order is the same, right? Just however we would string words together in English, we're just going to do the same thing in German, and again, it's going to work for us. Not quite. So looking at these same sentences, we do have German versions that would be in this exact same order. Okay, that's great, but we also in German can swap the order of those nouns around so that we're saying milk drinks the cat, the dog sees that man, pink petals has this flower. All right, so now if we were to say this in English, the first sentence here, the third sentence here, this would be very outdated, very poetic language, right? We would never use this in everyday spoken English, right? And then for this middle sentence, if we flip-flopped those nouns around, we're actually changing the meaning of the sentence, right? Where it's no longer the man who's seeing the dog, but now it's the dog that's seeing the man, okay? But the thing is that these sentences are possible in German. Okay, the endings, right, that the M and the R and the E and the S and the N and the dash, right, those endings that we were just talking about a moment ago allow German to have a more flexible word order than what we can use in English. So that we can have these sentences, and yet the way that we're formulating the and that and this, using those endings, right, the M and the N, etc., would signal to us that it's the cat that's drinking the milk, and it's the man who's seeing the dog, and it's the flower that has petals. So that doesn't matter, right, exactly where that noun is in the sentence, because we have these endings, we have all of this grammar, right, not just the vocab, we have all of this grammar that is signaling important information to us. So now, changing pace a little bit for this third temptation, many English speakers like to think that they need to use the exact same number of words that they would use in English. They need to have the same number of words in German. So then we come up with some weird situations where people try to say, I am coming, right, to use exactly 3 words like we do in English, or I would like, or I have to go, right? But in German, it doesn't work that way. To communicate the idea of I am coming is 2 words, not 3. To communicate the idea of I would like something is 2 words, not 3. To say I have to go, right? Like how we would say I have to go. In German, you would say more precisely, I must go. And again, it drops down the total number of words. So German is often more precise than English. It's a larger language. It's about 8 times the vocabulary size as English. So frequently there's going to be a very exact word for something, where in English we would use more words to communicate the same idea. So understanding that is going to save you some time. The next temptation is about verbs, right? So those previous examples were about verbs and how we don't need to use quite as many of them in German as we do in English. Now this temptation is to also keep all of the verbs together, again, like we do in English, but it's not going to work that way in German. So in this sentence, notice that we have the 2 verbs, will and go, right next to each other. But if we translate this sentence into German, we have what we could think of as meaning will is right there, but now this go, whoa, is way at the end of the sentence, right? This is very different, okay? You can't just put it all in the same order, and when it comes to the verbs in particular, they like to be kept apart in German instead of being kept together, right? So we could think of it as being like a sandwich, right? You have a verb, then you have all this other information in the middle, and then you might have another verb there at the very end, like another piece of bread. Final temptation, temptation number 5, is that vocabulary is used the same way, okay? So just like with our first temptation, you can't just learn vocabulary alone, you have to have the grammar, right? You also can't assume that all words mean what you think they mean, okay? So for example, in these sentences, I'm at the supermarket, I'm at grandma's, I'm at the end of my rope, right? We're using at each time, but in German, we would use 3 different words that all mean at, right? So where we would be using at in English, 3 different words in German, okay? So the truth is that words can have multiple meanings, right? So again, it's not just this one for one, just like you can't learn, just one word that means the, right? You have these 5 to 6 different versions of the. You also can't assume that for every other word like at or to or from or what have you, that there's just one way to say this, right? There could be multiple different words that would translate to just one of these options in English. So what all of these temptations have in common is the meta temptation to just translate everything. But instead, you need to learn how to think like a German. So now I'd love to hear from you. What are other temptations that you have fallen prey to at some point in your German learning journey? And, how did you overcome that obstacle? Leave me a comment down below. I'll look forward to reading that. And of course, continue watching with me here on YouTube. See you in the next video.